Okay, I'm going to do a demonstration on the math class. Math class is a class that's automatically imported into basically all Java programs, and it's part of the AP Computer Science subset, so we really need to know how to use its methods. All the methods of the math class are static methods. Now, you don't necessarily have to know exactly what that means at this point, but understand that when we call their methods, we call the methods from the class. So we don't have to create an object to call the method. We just call it from the class. So all the methods will be math dot, whatever the method we want to do. Okay. So, and these methods are usually given to you, or the headers, and with post conditions are given to you on the exam. But you definitely need to be familiar with them. Okay, so just gonna look at a couple here. You have the absolute value method, which would just be math.abs s. So that should be 5. I can't. Well, we'll see in a minute. It'll either be 5 or 5.0. I don't know if it returns an integer or a double. I would think a double, because it would have to handle negative 5.3 or whatever. So it probably returns a positive 5.0. You have the square root function, which definitely returns a double, even if you pass it an integer. I can't give it s, because that would throw an exception. Can't take the square root of a negative number. But let's just say 67, which will be whatever that is, 8 point something. Okay. So that's absolute value and square root. What's another one? You have the round. Now math.round rounds the way we would hope that it would round. It rounds 5.4 to 5. Okay. So it rounds to the nearest end. So this is 5.7. It'll round 6. Okay. So that's how round works. You also have the ceiling and the floor functions. Ceiling would round up, floor would round down. And they'll be called basically just like that. I think it's math.ceil would round to 6. Would round down to 5. So you have those. Let's see what else there is. The most important is the random method, but I want to make sure I don't have anything. You have a min and a max. System.out.print math.max 5 and 9. You'll print 9. The max minimum will print the minimum. Takes in 2 integers, not as many as you want to put in there. It takes in 2 integers. And let's just see that all those do what we think it will do. Compiles. Let's clear this. Okay. So it does make it an integer. Absolute value is integer. Maybe if you pass it maybe it's probably overloaded, which means that if you pass it an integer, it will return an integer, and if you pass a double, it will return a double. So there's actually 2 different methods there, 2 different headers. So I give it 5 and 5. This is the square root of 67. This is math.round, which actually returns a long, which is like an integer. There's no decimal there. A few differences, but you don't have to know much about it. It's basically like an integer. And then this is the ceiling. This is the floor. And what's 9? 9 is, the max of 5 and 9. Okay? So that's those methods. Now, the one you really have to get some practice with is the random function. So let's just say we want a coin. Okay? And a coin would either be 1 or 2. Flipping a coin, 1 heads, 2 tails. That would be something that we'd want to do. So the way we call it is math.random. Okay, now what math.random is a random double. Come out here. A random double between 0 and 1. Now notice I put a parentheses around 1 because you can't get 1. You can get 0. But it's a random double, so the chances are low. But 0 is included, 1's not included, which is important. Okay? So, right now this can give me anything. It can give me 0.34, it can give me 0.68, it can give me 0.91265. Anything between 0 and 1, I double. Okay, so what I'm going to do, I don't want 1 or 2. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to multiply that by 2. Now what that does, that gives me a number anywhere from 0 to 2. Alright, if you got 0.95 for math.random, you doubled it, you would get 1.9. And you know, if you got 0 doubled, you get 0. So basically it takes on any number between 0 and 2. Now the next step is I want to cast that. Because I don't want any number between 0 and 2. I just want a couple of numbers. Okay. So if I cast this, and I'll show you where it's easy to make some mistakes. You know, what I would hope this would be is either 0 or 1. Because the largest number that this can give me is 1.99999. Can't give me 2. Okay. So if I cast that, cast it, truncate the decimal, which would take that down to 1. So what I'm hoping that this would accomplish is give me 0 or 1 at random. Okay, so if I got 0.2 at random here, double that, I get 0.4. And if I cast that, I'll get 0. Okay, so 0 or 1. However, the problem is that casting actually has precedence over multiplication. So it's going to cast this, which will always be 0. But if you get a random number between 0 and 1, and you cast it, you get 0. And if you multiply by 2, you get 0. So now it's not random anymore. Okay? So what you want to do is put this in parentheses. So now we're doubling it first until we get this, and then we're truncating the decimal. That would give us either 0 or 1. Now, if you wanted 1 or 2, you add 1. Okay, so then that would give me either 1 or 2 at random. Okay. Same idea here. Die is singular for dice. So if I wanted 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, or 6, I would. So this gives me a number. Any decimal was highlighted right now. Any decimal between 0 and 6. You can't give me 6. So if I truncate that, it would either give me 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, or 5. That's 6 numbers. 0, 1, 2, 3, or 4. 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, or 5. So if I add 1 to that, I get 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, or 6, which would represent that. Okay, so that's how the random function is used. Most of the time we want a random integer, so we'll have to cast it somehow. So those are all common phases of the math class. One more thing I need to add, and just thought about it here, is math.pow, which is power, raising something to a power. And the way it works is that would be 2 to the 4th. So it would be 16.0 or 16, or very close to 16. Okay, so I'll run this again. This will give me a random number, 1 or 2. This will give me, let me say random integer. And this will give me a random integer, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, or 6. Okay. So we've already checked the first one. Let's make sure the math.pow gives us 16 and the last two gives us random integers the way we would want them to.